Today is the 12th of February, 2012. We are at the New York State Military Museum and Veterans Research Center in Saratoga Springs. My name is Wayne Clark. Sir, for the record, would you please state your full name and date and place of birth, please?
Charles P. Evans. I was born in San Antonio, Texas, on February 3rd, 1918.
Did you attend school there?
No. Then I moved to California, Victorville, California.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to junior college at Pasadena Junior College.
And when did you go into the service?
I went to the service a short time before D-Day.
You mean Pearl Harbor?
Before Pearl Harbor, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Now let me just ask you, why did you pick the Air Force?
I was mainly interested in flying airplanes. I'd worked for Vultee Aircraft, which was one of the pioneer manufacturers of airplanes. That was in Downey, California. I went to work for them in '37, worked for Vultee for 4 years, and then...
Now, what did you do there?
I was the assistant person in charge of the template department when I left.
Okay.
And we laid out all the different parts of the airplane, made templates for every part of the airplane. And
now, you had some college training. Did that prepare you for that job?
Yes, 2 years Pasadena Junior College, and I took aeronautical subjects while I was there. I
see. Did you do any flying at all?
A little bit. Well, my first flight, I think I was 12 years old, was in Victorville, California.
Huh.
And I was always attracted to flying. And my first flying, where I got my license, was in about 1941.
Now, what kind of airplane did you fly?
I started out in a Taylor Cub, and graduated up into BT-13s. That was a training plane that the Air Force used at that time.
Okay. Now, did you have your pilot's license before you went into the service?
I had a civilian pilot's license, yeah. The date of that was in 41.
Okay. Now, that must have helped you out a great deal going into the military and going to flight school. You had a leg up on everybody.
Well, it wasn't anything... nobody asked me if I had any flying. They treated everyone the same, as if they didn't know anything at all about aviation or airplanes. But of course, it did have some basic support of what you felt about things.
Okay. Now, were you drafted or did you enlist?
I enlisted.
Okay.
I don't know if they called it enlisted. We started off with the idea that we were going to become an officer, and it was called the Air Corps, the Army Air Corps. Later became the Air Force.
Right.
And you went through primary cadets, and then basic flying, primaries, and think they were Stearman aircraft they used.
Was that the old PT-17?
It was in that category, yes.
Mm-hmm.
And
Let me just ask you, how long did it take you to solo?
I think everyone took about the same period of time to solo, maybe 10 hours or so.
Wow.
And we had a very good training program.
Mm-hmm.
Again, as you went on up the ladder, you weren't given any credit for the flying you had, but it reinforced your ideas about flying, and
Mm-hmm.
I suppose made it a little more comfortable.
Now, after your basic training with the Stearman, what type of aircraft did you move on to next?
AT-6.
Now, that was a pretty big airplane.
It was a single engine
Yeah.
airplane. It was a heavy airplane,
Mm-hmm.
and it was preparing you to go into P-38s or P-51s or
Mm-hmm. Now, initially, did you want to be a fighter pilot or a bomber pilot?
everybody wanted to be a fighter pilot.
Uh-huh.
I was never trained in fighters at all. I went right into heavy bombardment, but everybody.
Everyone aspired to that.
That's what they wanted to be, fighter pilots.
Mm-hmm.
And I never did fly a fighter plane.
So you went from the AT-6 to bombers?
Yes, that's right. Well, actually, when I checked out AT-6 and when I got my commission, I instructed for almost 2 years in Merced, California, and we flew Vultee BT-13s,
Mm-hmm.
which was an airplane I had helped work on when I worked at, I worked 4 years at Vultee Aircraft, and I felt very much at home to start my flying in that airplane.
Mm-hmm.
So I flew it for 2 years or more, and then I got into B-24s and went over to combat in 1944.
Okay. Now, when you were commissioned a second lieutenant?
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you went for your B-24 training.
I went to Albuquerque, New Mexico for B-24 training,
Okay.
and it was several different bases. Albuquerque is one of the primary places,
Mm-hmm.
and it was broken up so that you had eventually had your crew training, and you brought together a 10-man crew,
Mm-hmm.
and they trained together, did bombing missions, formation flying, and things oriented more to the military
Mm-hmm.
activity.
Now, at that point, were you a pilot in command, or were you a co-pilot, or?
I was never a co-pilot. I started right out as first pilot.
Okay.
I started out as a second lieutenant.
Mm-hmm. Did you like the B-24?
Yes, you had to like it, but it wasn't the raciest airplane, but it was very substantial. It would stand a lot of abuse. I've seen them with the rudders blown off and a section of a wing knocked off, and the airplane still made it home. Of course, a good many of them didn't make it home, too. Yeah. But yes, it was nothing spectacular, but it was a dependable airplane. Carried a good bomb load, that's an important thing. Carried a lot of fuel, so you could go on long missions, and you could carry 1,000-pound bombs, sometimes 500, sometimes 100-pound bombs. A very versatile payload, and that's what it was designed to do. And would made for endurance also, so you could go for a mission of some 500 miles or so, have enough fuel to go there and come back, which was desirable.
Now, when did you go overseas?
I went overseas in May of '44, which was about, you might say, the middle of the war. And I flew all during 1944.
Okay. What route did you take overseas?
What?
What route did you take going overseas?
We ferried an airplane over when we went overseas. We got a brand new airplane. I think it was in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and one place we stopped en route and we stayed overnight was in Reykjavik, in Iceland. And basically, as I recall, the flight was broken up into two major legs. You flew up to Reykjavik, stayed overnight, and then you flew on to Scotland and made landfall in Scotland.
Now, did you fly a single airplane, or was there a formation?
Single airplane. Our whole crew was there. We had our own navigator. And you needed a navigator. You used celestial navigation to get across there. The radio facilities didn't completely cover the entire route.
Now, do you recall approximately how long it took to get over to Scotland?
Well, a good part of 2 days flying.
That was
I'd say about 12 hours or so.
Okay. All right. So you landed in Scotland, and what happened next?
It was just a holding place where your crew, you were together with your crew, the 10-man crew, and you were just waiting for an assignment. They would assign you an airplane and a base. Your entire assignment would be made, and in our case, we flew our entire combat series with the same crew, and if the airplane held up, we stayed with the same airplane. And usually, a good many of the combat tours were about 6 months. I was there longer than that because I did instructing and training there.
Now, what unit did you end up with?
It was, well, the whole description is the 409th Squadron of the 93rd Bomb Group of the 20th Combat Wing of the 8th Air Force, ETO, European Theater of Operation.
All right.
So,
And what was your first mission like?
the first mission was the day before D-Day,
Oh boy.
and it was the easiest mission that I ever had. We went out, and it wasn't a very long mission across the Pas de Calais, and we could see the landing vessels with carrying all the troops down below us, and
Now, was that a bombing mission, your first one?
it was. We dropped bombs in the immediate area of the landing. Landfall hadn't been secured yet. It was just trying to soften it up and get it established a place to pitch camp in German in the Third Reich location.
Do you recall how many airplanes went on that mission?
Some of our missions had as many as 1,000 airplanes on one mission. On D-Day, I would say we'd probably put up about 500. We were the second division, which was all B-24s, and then there was another division that was B-17s. I'm not sure what that was. Well, it was similar, almost similar number of airplanes and mission types and locations based in England. And but it was we always flew our own specified route, and the 17 flew theirs.
Now, did your airplane have a name?
No, if it did, I don't recall it. A good many airplanes, they found a name for them, and we kept pretty much the same airplane throughout the time that we flew there. And it got shot up and patched and put back on the line again.
Were any of your crewmen injured?
It's to cover that whole story. Losses were quite heavy, at least 50%, maybe more. And where I was flying, we were all flying the same place as everyone else. We had very low losses. And in our crew, we only got one crew member hit. It was a tail gunner. And he got a piece of flak in his chest. And he was bleeding internally. And our engineer, who was sort of the doctor, gave him a morphine syringe, and he was in pain and he was bleeding, and he violated the regulations. He gave him 2 morphine syringes, which is supposed to be enough to kill him. The tail gunner's name was Stackle. 2 two shots put him just on the verge of being alive, but it slowed down his internal bleeding and it saved his life. And so our engineer was a good doctor. And he got through it fine. It took a while, but he survived. But he was the only one. Closest I came, I was on a flight to Liège, Belgium, and we were on a long bomb run. And all of a sudden I felt a cold wind on my left ear. And I couldn't look to see what it was because we were on the bomb run and we were intent on holding altitude, speed, and direction. When I finally did look, a piece of flak had broken through the window about 12 inches away from my left ear. And that's all the damage it did to the airplane. And as a result of that, I was able to line up bulletproof glass for every airplane in our squadron, so that wouldn't happen again.
Now, was that one of your worst missions?
Liège, Belgium, not by far.
Okay.
It was just another mission. It was quite a long bomb run, as I recall. Sometimes it was 5 miles, sometimes 10. It's very long bomb, Liège. And there was always 88 millimeter guns firing at you. And sometimes they're more accurate than others, but you were between 20,000 and 30,000 feet elevation, which was about the limit apparently for those 88 millimeter guns. They put the flak, have them pre-set to explode at a given altitude, and hopefully they were hoping it'd be right at your altitude. All they had to do is miss a couple hundred feet, and a miss as good as a mile. But as you're on your bomb run, you'd see clouds of this black, sooty smoke from these shells exploding, and then there'd be a bright, not so much bright as red, dull red center to each explosion. And you'd sit there, all you could do is look at them, you couldn't avoid them. But luckily, they had more misses than they had hits.
Now what about German fighters? Were you ever attacked by fighter planes?
Well, I would say that most of our losses were MU-109s, Wolf 190s. They brought down more of our airplanes than all these 88 millimeter guns that were fired at us from the ground. And at certain periods in the war, they shot a lot of our airplanes down. I think something I read, there was close to 1,000 B-24s shot down in one day.
Jeez.
And we flew a whole tour, and I think our squadron, the 409 Squadron, didn't lose a half a dozen airplanes during the time.
Was your crew credited with shooting down any German fighters at all?
No.
No.
Our crewmen trained to fire those 50 caliber machine guns, and we didn't fire one shot in the whole tour. And whether you want to call that luck or providence or for whatever reasons, they were, you know, trying to shoot us down, but they didn't get around to. We saw old fighters one time, and in that particular mission, it was one of the longest ones, is to Politz, which is up in northwestern Germany. And
now, what kind of mission was that? What were you bombing?
it was bombing. Had to do with the oil, whether it was the refinery,
Okay.
I believe, refinery, and we had a snafu, lack of communication on our departure, so that we were out of position. We blamed all this on our lead, well, it was the lead crew, the lead navigator. For whatever reason, we were 15 minutes behind where we should be, and with the 500 airplanes were in the 8th Air Force. So when we collected ourselves, we only had 8 airplanes who were invading the longest mission that I was ever on. Normally, you would have several hundred airplanes at least, so that you could sort of divide up the hits and misses. But in this case, we were alone, and I said, "You see any fighters?" And he says, "Yes, there are some. They're down below us." And we figured, well, they're coming up to take a shot at us. And went on for a few minutes, and I said, "So where are those fighters now? Are they coming up?" "No, they're not." And we concluded they had been shooting at the other 500 or so airplanes where we should have been. So they're all out of ammunition and out of fuel, and they didn't have enough fuel and ammunition to come up and shoot at us at all. So we had a glimpse of them, and they looked down and landed. So whether that's providence or good luck, whatever you want to call it.
How many missions did you fly?
I flew 30 missions. That was normal missions. It was based on losses, and the losses were at least 50%. That the number of missions flown varied in different periods of the war, but I was in the middle of it. It was 30 missions. Was the standard at that point.
What was life like for you between missions? Like when you were on the ground, was it hard to unwind?
No, you couldn't possibly expect anything better under the circumstances. The location they'd taken over a place, a town called Hardwick. I guess they take up basically the whole township and build an airfield there, and our accommodations. And we were taking care of the food wasn't always, instead of fresh eggs, you got dried eggs.
Powdered eggs?
Yeah, powdered eggs. But all through the service, you felt that you were privileged to be there. And if you had a day off and you wanted to go flying, you'd quite often you could go check out an airplane. You couldn't do that in England, but in the States, you could then fuel up an airplane, and you could go stay overnight. They'd furnish your accommodations. You couldn't have done better if you're a millionaire.
Mm-hmm. How were you treated by the English people?
We didn't meet too many, but the ones we did meet, wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
I met the Coleman family. They manufactured Coleman mustard.
Oh.
And they had an estate in, they would let us stay overnight with them. It was, you had no complaints.
Uh-huh.
Except for you got killed, then you wondered if this is worth it.
Now, after your last mission, you must have been really relieved.
I guess you could say that. Yeah.
Now,
what we did, I didn't bring a picture, but through the procedure was to throw a guy in the pool there. It wasn't very warm water either.
Uh-huh.
He'd take off most of his clothes and he'd throw him in this pond. Then you went home, and the war was still
sure.
active, and the Pacific was active. So after a break, you'd probably find yourself in the Pacific someplace.
Now, when did you go back to the States?
I didn't go back till about May of '45.
Okay, so that was. Did the war?
I think the war was over while I was on a boat coming home.
Okay, the war in Europe.
The spring of '45.
Now, let me ask you about your bombing missions. Did you do mostly day bombing or night bombing?
100% day bombing.
100%?
And the British did 100% night bombing.
What do you think was most effective?
I think ours was, because it was a visual. So you had to just, as long as you're looking at it, the Norden bomb site was a strictly visual instrument. You looked at it like you were looking through some binoculars, and it had a timing device that measured your speed over the ground and anticipated like you're shooting ducks. It tells you, you don't aim at the duck, you aim up ahead of it. Well, that's what you do dropping bombs at the Norden bomb site.
Okay. Now, you went back home. It was May. The war in Europe was over. Well, you said it was over when you were on the boat. What was it like when you got home? Was there a lot of celebration?
Oh, no.
I mean, did you go on?
We were good accommodations. We were sent to Santa Monica, California.
Uh-huh. Now, did you get to go home at all during that period?
No, not right away. Well, you were either, you had an opportunity to stay in the service if you wanted to. I was invited to stay in the service, and I said thank you, but no thank you.
Now, I wanted to ask you, okay, I was just looking at something here. You got home. What were there rumors you were going to the Pacific?
There weren't rumors. You knew the war was still going on in the Pacific, so there was no other place to go. Some people had some assignment in the States, but very best buddy was sent to the Pacific and was bombing Japan. And that big airplane, it was at a B-29, I guess.
Uh-huh.
And he was killed in that. The war didn't last too many weeks longer than
No,
that.
it ended in August.
I forget, maybe June or...
August. It ended in August with the dropping of the atomic bomb. Now, did you come back with your crew? Did everybody finish about the same time?
No. I stayed there and did instructing and flying forming ships for 3, 4, 5 months after we finished our 30 missions.
Okay. All right. And whereabouts were you when the war with Japan ended?
Let's see, I think I was released either, it was very nearly within weeks of when the war ended.
Okay.
It was assumed it was about to end. And so I was in Santa Monica, California.
Now, did you want to stay in the service, or were you anxious to get out?
I had the opportunity to, because I had aeronautical experience before I started flying even, and my training led in that direction. But I thought the military was very interesting. While you're in combat, I had something definite duty, but I couldn't see a peacetime. It got to be more of a well, you didn't have a definite.
You didn't have a real mission.
Like you do in combat, you knew what you had to do. And, I passed up an opportunity to move up in the service. When I finished my tour duty, the colonel brought me in and says, I was a captain then. I made the captain for flying lead crew in a good many missions. And if I would have stayed and flown with our P-47 and just moved up the ladder, it'd have given me a majority. And that went through my head for just a matter of seconds. I said, well, I've enjoyed what we've done so far, but I don't think I want to be shot at anymore. In the words of that effect. And he didn't push it. He was very pleasant.
Okay.
And that's something, I don't know if it's well known about the military, but they had that attitude. It made you feel like you're one of the family. And they were very generous about, like seeing you flying. Of course, you flew an airplane, you're getting some training. You can justify it that way.
Oh, you know what I wanted to ask you? You had mentioned in our phone conversation that Jimmy Stewart was taking training the same time you were?
He was a month or two ahead of me, yes. He was at Mather Field in Sacramento. Well, I saw him there. He was still there, which was about the time that he and I must have graduated the training within a month of each other.
Mm-hmm. Did you ever fly with him?
No, he came, sent to England, and he flew in a.
I think he was a B-17 pilot, wasn't he?
No, I think he was in 24s.
Okay.
I couldn't say positively, but I'm pretty sure that he was in the same group that I was in, the 93rd bomb group. I think he was there sometime. And I was told that Clark Gable had been there also. He was a gunner.
Uh-huh.
And
now, he was a major and he was a gunner, right? That's what I had heard.
I guess gunners, you got to have majors everywhere you turn.
Did you ever meet any other celebrities at all?
Not that I can recall.
Any USO shows overseas?
Some wonderful shows, yes. They'd have them in the hangar, and who was the band leader that was?
Glenn Miller?
Yeah, was he the one that was killed or
Yes.
lost on a mission? Well, it was just shouldn't have been any combat involved. He was just getting a ride from France to England, and they never accounted for the airplane he was in. So, and I never did hear any ideas of at all what become just completely wiped out of sight. So I don't know what it was. There's more than one way to die.
Yeah.
And,
now, once you were discharged, did you make use of the GI Bill at all? To buy a house or go to school? Or?
Oh, they use it for one thing. I wanted to get on with the airlines, and I could, at the time, I could have used some more pilotage training. Let's see, how does that work out? Oh, I know what it was. You had to pass a civilian instrument flight test,
Mm-hmm.
Which formally you had to go through a training period to get that, which I didn't have. So I got that training and charged it up to my bill. So I was using my, I could have been used to go to college, that's what I should have done. But I used it to get flight training, and I did get on with an airline, so it worked. It's what I wanted to do.
What airline did you fly for?
American.
And how many years did you have with American?
35.
Did you really?
Yeah.
And what type of aircraft did you fly with American?
I flew all except 2 or 3 that I didn't fly. I didn't fly the, let's see, 747. Well, I started out in the DC-3 and flew the DC-6, the DC-7, the Convair CV-240, Convair 240, the Lockheed Electra, L-E-C-T-R-A, Lockheed Electra, I flew that. And the Boeing 727, that had two engines in the tail. And then the 707, that's the first big 4-engine airplane, which was the most marginal airplane I've ever put in service. It was just beginning of jet age, and they didn't have enough power. They had, it was the first engine, well, it wasn't the first, the Germans had the first jet engines. sometimes it barely got off the ground, the 7-0, out of Kennedy. They kept that from the public, I don't know. I knew a crew that took off there when there was snow and ice on the ground, and just before they broke ground, they hit a piece of ice and it banged up into the wing and you could hear it. And they just waddled off the ground. But they improved, well, they improved the engines on that airplane. And they improved the rudder system. They didn't have adequate rudder. If you lost an outboard engine, it was adios. Because you didn't have enough extra power from the other three to keep going. And there were quite a few airplanes lost in that early period. When would that have been? 46, I'd say, on in there, 46. Well, anyway, I flew the 707, but I got there a few months later. They improved it. It had more power. It had a boosted rudder. And the next after the 707 was the DC-10. DC-10 was about the next to the biggest airplane that American had. And I didn't fly the 707. I didn't fly the biggest of the Boeing aircraft, the 747, I guess, on it.
Now, how many hours have you logged?
Stuff writing it down. I couldn't be honest with you, know how many.
But thousands.
Yeah, many times around the world. And, I enjoyed every bit of it. And
what was your favorite place in the world?
Oh, let's see. I can tell you some of my least favorite. One was in Karachi. When I retired from American in '78, I got a job with Pakistani Air Lines.
Oh, really?
PIA, Pakistani International Airlines. And we flew old second-hand 707s, which was an adventure because they were underpowered too. This was in '78. So I flew for PIA for part of 1 year. And I was over 60, and so I couldn't fly in the United States.
Oh, I
you
see.
could fly over there. And that's when I stopped commercial flying, stopped flying for PIA.
Did you do any civilian flying? As like a small, like a private plane, or
Cessna 172?
172, yeah.
172. I found somebody that was interested in flying and fishing, and we'd rent a Cessna for about $35 an hour. Now it's $135. And we'd fly it out of Glens Falls and fly up in the Adirondacks. And I haven't flown for a few years, 10 years or more now.
Did you stay in contact with any of the people you were in the service with? Any of your crew members?
Not to any great degree. My crew members are scattered all around the country. I sent Christmas cards and various things. And
How many are still left after all these years?
I really, I wish you could tell me because I'm not sure. I was a little bit older than the rest of them, so there should be a few. There was never more than one in any given place in Minnesota.
Did you ever attend any unit reunions at all?
I joined VFW here, but I haven't been very active there. You might as well answer that by saying no, I haven't.
Okay. How do you think your time in the service changed or affected your life? I think you've pretty much covered that.
No, that was my life. That's it. I can remember being interested in airplanes when I was 4 years old. That was my dad was in the Navy in Hampton Roads, Virginia, that's near Norfolk, and I used to see an airplane in the sky there, and I was interested in it. And there was an airplane cable ride down to the beach that I remember. I enjoyed that. So I did what I wanted to do. I was very lucky, and besides all that, I survived. So that's the amazing part. I don't like to speculate outside how come it was me that got through that, because all my best friends have been killed. Tommy Wilkinson, the first two instructors I had in the service, the name doesn't pop right into my head, but they were both killed in, I think, they were in the European theater, probably in either 24s or 17s.
Now, you had mentioned Tex Rankin. Did you ever fly with him?
No, I never even saw him. Everybody knew who he was. He didn't spend much time around that particular place. I think he had other business connections.
Okay. Let me ask you this. How did you end up in Saratoga?
My daughter lived here for quite a few years. And all our family we're kind of centered with our family. I have two great-grandchildren here. They live just the other side of the Saratoga Links. I mean, not McGregor Links golf course. And then my daughter lives over on Saratoga Lake.
Okay, now your wife is still living.
Yeah, she's good health.
And what's your wife's name?
Elsie Evans. She's from Huntington Park, California.
And how many years have you been married?
60 or something. So we're married.
Did you meet her in the service?
No. I met her down in California. Through a family member. We got married in 44, so.
Okay, so you were in the service then, when you got married?
Oh yes, I'd been in the service. I was based in Merced, California for about 3 years.
What was it like for your wife, you being overseas? Did you get letters and packages very often?
Yeah, we wrote letters. That's about all we could do. She adjusted. We both adjusted to it pretty well. It was pretty obvious what we had to do. I never did consider it a terrible hardship or anything.
I have a few more minutes left on the tape. Is there anything else that you'd like to cover that we probably missed, I'm sure? Any other incidents or memories of your time in service come to mind?
Well, I already mentioned that my dad was his career as a Navy enlisted man, and he retired in about 35 or 37. He was called back into service. He was active in the Navy for 2 or 3 years during the war.
Oh, okay.
And so, of course, we kept in touch.
Did you get called up at all for Korea?
Korea? How come you asked for that?
Just curious, because that happens.
As I was called. I don't know if it was invited or it was a command or what. I was invited to come back and fly in Korea, and by that time I was flying with American Airlines. So I wrote a letter. I got a copy of it in there. I wrote a letter saying I was occupied flying airplanes, and I'd already put in 4 years of service, and I'd rather not be called back again. And that's the last word I ever heard.
Yeah.
They didn't say yes or no. They just stopped writing.
Okay. Do you want to hold up a couple of those photographs? I'd like to get a shot of that one with your crew.
Oh, where are the ones with the crew members?
Yes.
Yeah, here's one of the crew, and here's the formation.
Okay, can you just hold that right up against your chest, and I'll...
Closer?
I can zoom right in on it.
Oh.
And you're right there in the center. It looks like between 2 numbers. Looks like the number 1. Okay, that's. And that other shot is formation flying. Okay, got it. All right. Okay, you want to tell us about this photograph here? You'll hold that up in front of you.
I think this is the Wasatch Mountains. That's the mountains in Idaho and.
Oh, it was a training flight?
Yeah. That's the training flight. I think that's a base in Boise, Idaho. This picture is taken over, is in the vicinity of Sun Valley, Idaho. These are Wasatch Mountains, and then that's an old B-24 that's it's no longer a combat airplane because it has no guns on it.
All right. Okay, you can set that down. All right, well, thank you so much for your interview.
Well, enjoy your reminiscing.